Hi, my name is Janet Drucker. I'm co-owner of Drucker Antiques with my son Bill, my husband Bird. I have authored a book called Georg Jensen, A Tradition of Splendid Silver, published in 1997 by Schiffer Publishing. And it is the story of Georg Jensen's life, his growth as a silversmith, and the kind of artistic silver objects that he produced starting from 1904 in a small atelier in Copenhagen, and that has grown to a large company. You can find more information about Georg Jensen Silver by finding us on a web page. It's www.druckerantiques.com. This segment is about Georg Jensen Flatware. The term flatware is what we know in America as utensils that we eat with. Forks, spoons, knives, the things we set a table with. In Europe, it's referred to as cutlery. And in the American market, we use the term flatware, very easily understood by everyone. So what I'm going to talk about today is the different patterns produced by Georg Jensen Smithing of the flatware or the table surface. Georg Jensen designed jewelry, hollowware, and flatware. Unlike jewelry, the popularity of which is sometimes prone to changes with fashion, flatware patterns remain popular forever, for certainly extended periods of time, and several early Jensen patterns of flatware remain consistently in demand since 1904, and they are still produced today. If you think about the different utensils in flatware, we think about a 5-piece place setting or a 4-piece place setting. We're talking about a knife, a spoon, a salad knife, sometimes called a teaspoon, and a butter knife or a spreader, depending on the pieces that you want to include. There are a great many other pieces that you can include in flatware as well, like iced tea spoons and ice cream spoons and fish knives. I am going to limit the talk today to describing the patterns that Jensen designed or his colleagues designed. The first image is of continental flatware. Each of these patterns has a Danish name and an American name, and in many instances when they were sold in Paris they have a French name. I will limit this to the two names because it does get confusing. In America, we refer to this pattern that was designed in 1906 as the continental pattern, and the Danish name is antique. It also has a production number, which is number 4. It is a very hand-hammered surface of very clear, simple forms. There is a set of horizontal lines that articulate the shape of the handle when it meets the utensil part. These forms were inspired by wooden Danish eating utensils, and the pattern is still in production today. The second and the third image is Lily of the Valley. The Danish name is Liljekonval. It is designed in 1913 by Georg Jensen, and the production number is number 1. There's a garland of forms that are very naturalistic, that circle the outside of the shape of the fork, the knife, and the spoon. And the Lily of the Valley relates to a blossom pattern in that it both demonstrates Jensen's delight in designs that were inspired by nature. The pattern is still in production today. The next pattern is called the beaded pattern. It was designed by Georg Jensen in 1916, and the production number is number 7. It's very simple. There seems to be one perpendicular line that goes from the intersection of the utensil with the handle and slopes on both sides. The only adornment is this tiny little bead that encircles the end parts of the utensils. It is very simple in design, uncluttered, and almost can be used with any kind of dishes, or it would work with any design that you had on your utensil, on your table. The next pattern is one that is most common. By that I mean it was produced more than anything else. More people are familiar with it, and there are other flatware companies that copied many of these patterns. Once they were favorable and the public liked them, there were other companies like International Silver that copied the acorn pattern. It was designed in 1915 by Jensen's earliest colleague, Johan Rode. The production number is called 62, and the Danish name is Konge, K-O-N-G-E. It means it's the king's pattern. And it's very classical and very vivid. The finial on the end of each piece is an acorn that has an open space in between with a leaf design, and a horizontal decoration separates it from the acorn finial, and there are 3 ridges that are on the handle of each of the place-setting pieces. One of the interesting facets about the acorn design, in addition to it being the most popular design, and most people recognize it, is that there were at one time about 228 different pieces made. Today there are about 80 different pieces made in the acorn pattern. There were card holders, lemon knives, ice tongs, grape scissors, strawberry spoons, such a variety, sugar tongs, bib holders. For some reason, there were many, many pieces made in this pattern, and if you can visualize that at the time that Jensen became successful, the population in Denmark was enjoying a better financial situation, and there were larger families, big houses. Many houses had household help, and they would eat very large meals, and there was a utensil designated for each piece. And again, if you think about Jensen's aesthetic, about why he made his silver the way he did, his background as a sculptor, you could understand that what he wanted to do was to bring art into daily life. And by integrating the usefulness of a place setting or a fork, a spoon, and a knife into the table, he was able to bring a beautiful artistic object into daily function. Johan Rode, who was a very well-established painter at the time, began his relationship with Georg Jensen even before Jensen opened his shop at 36 Bredgade. And Johan Rode remained a close associate of Georg Jensen throughout their lives. They both died in the same year, in 1935. Johan Rode, who designed acorn, died in the beginning of the year, and Jensen died in October of 1935. The next pattern is called the Canthus. It was also designed by Johan Rode in 1917, and the production number is number 180. The Danish name is Droning, D-R-O-N-N-I-N-G. The fork and the spoon end with identical finials, and which feature 4 bilateral symmetrical lobes, and they scroll back from a very cross-hatched bud The place settings were the rails of the spoons, where the rails of the spoons and the fork meet the utensil are embellished by scroll work. And the knife of this place setting exhibits a very traditional classical acanthus, which was based in Greek and Roman design, and the design is patterned after the leaves of an acanthus plant used especially on the capitals of Corinthian columns. And I believe Johann Rode was inspired by his many trips abroad. Rode introduced his unique Danish interpretation of a Greco-Roman image in this pattern, and the pattern acanthus is still in production. The blossom pattern is probably the most ornate as we know it. It is a pattern that was designed by Georg Jensen in 1919, and it is the production number is number 84. The Danish name is Magnolia, Magnolie, and the blossom was originally developed by Georg Jensen the second year that he opened his atelier in Copenhagen. Actually, it originated as a finial on top of a teapot, that number 2 teapot. The pattern is recognized as Jensen's signature style. He adapted this pattern to flatware by integrating the blossom into the handles of the place-setting pieces. The handles of the fork and the spoon taper, and they end in an open blossom form, which has beaded little stamens around them. The bowl of the spoon and the head of the fork have been hammered to create a very fluid effect. It is a very sturdy knife handle that encases the blossom, whereas the fork and the spoon are not encased in a frame. You can see that the blossom is really the part that you handle. The interest in naturalism spurred motifs derived from plant life, and Jensen carried this inspiration throughout his career and introduced these motifs in jewelry as well as in hollowware and flatware. And each piece is an artistic delight, and the pattern is still in production. The pyramid pattern was designed by Harold Nielsen in 1926. The production number is number 15, and the Danish name is pyramid with an E at the end. The pyramid pattern, along with the cactus pattern, which we will see in a few moments, are both related to the Art Deco style. And pyramid was inspired by the discovery of the Tutankhamun tomb. The Egyptian revival style appeared in fashion, in decorative arts, and in architecture. This pattern features a flat handle which tapers to the head of the utensil with short stepped horizontal lines and the finial ends with a silver ball. The pattern is still in production. Harold Nielsen was a brother-in-law of Georg Jensen and apprenticed with Georg Jensen when he was 14 years old, and he was Joanna Nielsen's brother. He became the artistic director of Georg Jensen after Jensen died. The cactus pattern is a pattern that is designed by Gundolf Albertus, also who was a brother-in-law of Georg Jensen. The pattern was designed in 1930. It is called number 30. The Danish name is cactus with a K-A-K-T-U-S spelling. And Gundolf Albertus joined Georg Jensen's workshop in 1911 as a chaser. He was trained as a sculptor at the Royal Academy of Art. He remained with Georg Jensen Smithy throughout his career, just as Harold Nielsen did. The cactus pattern exhibits very simple lines with a very strong form. And the design in the center is very reminiscent or reminds people of an American Indian design. Many people who like the arts and crafts furniture find that cactus works very well with that decor. It's also a pattern that has great appeal for young people and old people as well. The design in the center is a stylized palmette that is contrasted by a clear surface that has radiating lines through it. And the motif on the knife handle is a little larger than the other place pieces. The stylized leaf design is an Art Deco design inspired by nature, and the pattern is still in production today. The pattern Bernadotte was designed by Sigvard Bernadotte in 1939, and the production number is number 9. The designer is Count Sigvard Bernadotte. He is the son of King Gustav VI of Sweden. He was the first non-Dane to design for the company, and he introduced functionalism, which was a style which was a great departure from the naturalistic ornamentation of Jensen style. And he designed for Jensen and came along when the company was looking for a new style or something to create a little different interest. In 1930, Georg Jensen was still alive. Bernadotte Flatware is very elegant in its simplicity. The proportion is quite wonderful. The handle of the place-setting pieces vary a little from fork to spoon, and it is very simple. It is vertical lines, and the pattern is done on both sides, and the pattern is still in production today. Old Danish is a pattern that was designed by Harold Nielsen in 1947. The number is number 100. The designer, Harold Nielsen, as I said before, was a brother-in-law of Georg Jensen. The pattern retains a kind of old world flavor. It's very simple, very classical. It is unadorned. The contours of the form are accented by a line that has a little oxidation in it that follows the form. The pattern is in production today, and it is a pattern that retains a very classic, timeless quality of Danish tradition. The pattern Bittersweet, designed by Gundorf Albertus in 1940, is called Pinge, P-I-N-G-E. It is, the production number is number 79. It's a little similar to the cactus. The design element is kind of a final statement on the finial rather than at the center where the cactus motif is described. And it too has a very naturalistic inspiration in its leaf form, and the two leaves that flank the center appear very dimensional, three-dimensional, and the stylized finial is the only decoration on a very shiny, clean surface. The pattern is not in current production. Caravelle is a pattern that was designed by Henning Kappel, who joined the company in the late 40s, and he was brought along with the encouragement of Harold Nielsen, who was the artistic director. And Henning Kappel was a sculptor and trained as a designer before he came to Jensen. He was probably the most innovative and important designer to be added to the company's collection of very important creative people. Caravelle, the production number is number 111. The pattern is an outstanding example of Scandinavian modern of the 1950s. Each piece is stark and simple and sleek. It has great form. The shiny surface enables the form to speak for itself. Henning Kappel won many international awards. One of them was the Lunning Prize, which I describe in more detail in the book, which Henning Kappel awarded was awarded in 1953, and Koppel designed jewelry and hollowware for Georg Jensen. The pattern is not in current production. Cypress is a design by T.S. Eckhart, was done in 1953. It's called 1990. The number is number 99. He was awarded the 25th anniversary prize of the Georg Jensen firm in 1954 and the Lunning Prize in 53. The name of the pattern describes the shape of the flatware. Each piece is sleek, smooth, and reaching tall like a cypress tree. The pattern is not in current production today. Dahlia is a pattern designed by Siegfried Wagner, who was a sculptor and a silversmith, a well-known artist in Denmark. It was designed in 1912. The number is numbered 3, and the Danish name is Dahlia, the same as it is in English. Siegfried from Wagner was a sculptor, and the pattern has 3 repeated motifs on the handle of each piece. It is more like a folk motif than anything else, very decorative in design, and there are sculptural fish forms which terminate at the handles. The pattern is not in production. Elsinore was designed by Harold Nielsen in 1937. The number was number 59, and the Danish name is Agave, Agave. The Scandinavian forms are clearly soft and geometric. The perpendicular line runs through the full length of the handle. Very simple, very Danish. The pattern is not in production. Fuchsia is a pattern designed by Georg Jensen in 1905, very early on, very much inspired by naturalism. The Danish name is Klokke, K-L-O-K-K-E, very desirable by people who bought the pattern many years ago. The pattern reflects the signature style of Georg Jensen. It refers to a beautiful flower emerging, buds, and each place setting is very beautiful, yet it's a very simple form, very similar to continental. This pattern was in production until the 30s and only on a special order basis. It is no longer in production. Nordic was designed by Gunluck Peterson in 1937. The production number is number 76, and the Danish name is Ladby, L-A-D-B-Y. The pattern is no longer in production. Parallel, also designed by Gunluck Peterson in 1931. The number is 25, and the Danish name is Relief. A very simple, clear geometric pattern, very simple linear design, and it kind of fits into every changing design of the decorative arts of the 30s. It's quite beautiful and elegant and very timeless, not in production today. Scroll is a very beautiful, heavy pattern designed by Johan Rode in 1927. Number 22 is the number, and the Danish name is Saga, S-A-G-A. The design is inspired by Scandinavian Viking decorations. It is a very strong design. It gives you the impression of strength and power. It's beautiful to hold in your hand. The pattern is not in production, very desirable, and a very deep graphic scroll is impressive, and the center design. There are other pieces of flatware that are called ornamental pieces. They have a number, but they don't necessarily have a flatware that goes along with it. For example, some of the pieces that are serving pieces made with ivory and with ebony. Each of these pieces have a number on them. They have no name. They can be used with any particular flatware to complement them, and they are called ornamental or one-of-a-kind or unique pieces, and they each have a number on the back, and they each are handmade. Jensen Flatware was made with the idea that it should be used every day, and the sterling silver has a beautiful glow and patina to it when you use it. It's very sturdy. Many families have used it for holidays, and there are wonderful stories that are told by people who remember their grandparents using them, and on special occasions, people were given baby spoons that they cherish, and Jensen silver has a long tradition of memories that go along with its use, because it really was made to be used every day by people and enhance their life, and certainly enjoy the wonderful custom of having a family dinner and celebrating a special occasion, or just enjoying everyday meals with the family with Jensen Flatware. It can be used very easily, washed and cared for. It's very sturdy, and in many families it is handed down from one generation to another. And today there are many young people who pick their own Jensen pattern, just as their grandparents did years ago. Georg Jensen created a style. You can read more about Georg Jensen's background in my book, Georg Jensen, A Tradition of Splendid Silver, published in 1997 by Schiffer Publishing, and you can find us on www.druckerantiques.com.